half the country is either pre-diabetic or diabetic.
Yeah, there's 95 million Americans that are pre-diabetic, and there's 40 to 50 million Americans that have diabetes. It's not an inherited disease that comes to you. It's literally something that you create with your choices every day. From a type 2 diabetes standpoint, what foods literally am I consuming, and what's my lifestyle?
Are you a type 2 diabetic for life?
No, type 2 diabetes is definitely reversible. It's definitely manageable. It's something that everyone who has or been told that they have type 2 diabetes should be working to reverse and eliminate from their life completely. If you're concerned about blood sugar regulation in the body, you can simply start changing the order that you eat food in. So consume vegetables first, consume meat, protein, so protein, veggies, and then at the end, carbs. If you're eating processed foods, carbohydrates, and you're like, well, I love the Italian meal and I love the Italian food and that's just who I am, I love carbs. Well, that's setting a perfect stage, setting the perfect scenario for you to be diabetic.
This is the Be Well Now podcast. You're Dr. Ron Dummar.
Yes.
I'm Nick, a patient, a friend, a
Welcome,
co-host
everyone.
of the Be Well Now podcast. I have friends who are diabetic. I did a blood lab here, which I highly recommend for anybody out there. And it showed that I was on the verge of being pre-diabetic, or was I pre-diabetic? I don't know. We turned it around. So there's hope for you out there, but it scared me a little bit. And I had no idea what was going on. I just told you, I'm like, let's do a podcast about diabetes. It's almost so normal now that it's like not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal.
Yeah, and you were right in that range where it was a concern for us, and we felt like in order to optimize it better, we needed to get you just a little bit lower. And by doing that, we improved metabolism, we improved energy, we improved mitochondrial function, and the body functions better. So there is a significant issue that people are dealing with, ultimately, that leads to diabetes. And one of those, really, I would say the main one, is diet. The other one is lifestyle, like their exercise or the lack of exercise. And literally by correcting those two things, you can go a long way in resolving blood sugar related issues, diabetes, prediabetes.
We can talk about what causes it. There's type 1, type 2, type 3 diabetes. I actually have heard about type 2. Is it reversible? Or is once you have type 2, are you a type 2 diabetic for life?
No, type 2 diabetes is definitely reversible. It's definitely manageable. It's something that everyone who has or been told that they have type 2 diabetes should be working to reverse and eliminate from their life completely. Some people it takes, I would say with majority of people, it may take a very drastic change in your diet, the foods that you're consuming, the things that you eat every day, but also stress can play a role in that as well because it regulates the sugar within the body. It can increase the sugar in your blood and the availability of sugar in the blood. So there are definitely things that can be addressed that you can do. So one thing, for instance, we'll just start here because you love news that you can use.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, let's help people.
Yeah, tell me how we can help it. Well, one thing that you can do if you're concerned about blood sugar regulation in the body, you can simply start changing the order that you eat food in. So what spikes blood sugar? What spikes insulin in the body? Well, it's your processed sugars, your processed carbs, your refined carbs, things like that. So what you'll want to do is put all of those things at the end of your meal. So consume vegetables first, consume meat, protein, so protein, veggies, and then at the end, carbs. And more often than not, what you're going to do, the reason we have you do this is because you'll fill all of those glucose receptors. You'll fill those things with the protein and with the veggie. And so by the time you get to the carb, it's like, okay, well, it might still taste good on your tongue, but we're not, boom, causing a significant spike in the insulin and the blood sugar.
Why does that matter?
Well, it's a problem. It's not a problem. Let's put it that way. It's not a problem because it's what your body's designed to do. Your body's designed to take in sugars. So if we have a moment where, bam, we have a really high intake of sugars, your body will receive all those sugars and drive it into the cell or create a storage option for it for later when it's needed. That's fine. The body's designed to do that. The problem is where if we have repeated spikes over and over and over. So if you start most of your meals with a snack, or if you're snacking regularly and those snacks are carb-focused snacks, you're actually doing yourself more harm than good. There used to be this trend where people would say, hey, in the health world even, it's important to keep your glucose consistent over time, right? And so in order to do that, make sure you're eating snacks. And the snacks that they would choose, they would eat every 2 hours, and the things that they would consume would be really high in sugars. Well, that's a problem.
Like eating candy so your blood sugar doesn't go down.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, well, no, what we need to be consuming is food. We need to be consuming food, real food. And yeah, if you're consuming actually fruit, that's your sugar, that's actually way better than consuming candy or consuming a soda, right? So you're not going to have near of a spike from that because it's more of a complex carbohydrate in the food product, right? You have to break down that food product to get it into your cell. So if you consume food, real food, in the place of any sugary drink or soda or even a sugary candy or a granola bar, even super high in sugar, then you're going to be a lot better off, and your body's going to be able to regulate that sugar way better. So let's go to type 1 first of all, just so people understand. We wanted to give just a little bit of a background on what is the difference, what is type 1, what is type 2, and many people may not have even heard about this type 3, and it is really more of a nuanced term right now, because what we're looking at is from a type 3, and I know I'm jumping to the end, but type 3 is really more of a precursor or an early onset to the development of dementia and Alzheimer's. So we see in type 3 where it's more of a brain-related, glucose-deficient metabolic issue. So we're not able to utilize the sugar properly in the brain because of the insulin spikes and the sugar spikes that we've had over our lifetime. Sometimes this is, I would say frequently, it's because we were developing or had type 2 diabetes, diagnosed or undiagnosed throughout our life. And as a result, we developed a system or a process within our brain that became insulin resistant, meaning that the cells of the brain now are not receiving the sugars. Then what happens? Well, our neurology is not functioning as well. We require a lot of glucose. We consume a lot of glucose in our brain to literally perform neurological functions. And so if we're not able now to take up sugar and glucose into our brain, then we start having obviously deficiency of the energy output that is necessary for even thinking, computing, doing tasks, remembering things, remembering people, remembering faces. And so we see also on top of that, this beta amyloid plaquing that takes place. And they're making correlations between, it's like neuroinflammation that comes as a result of the initially chronic sugar exposure and the excessively high sugar in the blood, because eventually insulin resistance kicks in and keeps the sugar high. And then the inflammation kicks in. And once we have the inflammation in the body, it's deteriorating and breaking things down neurologically. And then we end up with beta amyloid plaquing. And that's where at the end, more on the end stage, they look at that and say, oh, this is a telltale sign of Alzheimer's and dementia.
So is a lot of that describing how you get type 2 diabetes in the first place as well? Because I've always been confused about insulin resistance and how it happens, but it just seems like if you eat a lot of sugary foods, that is probably not a good way to live your life.
Yeah, and so that was the description of type 3, which is more of neuroinflammation. It's more sugar utilization within the brain and neurology. Type 2 is more of a metabolic disorder, okay, which is like mitochondrial function. It also does play a role, like insulin resistance plays a role in it, but it is the utilization of sugar within the cell of the body, that's our metabolism, our metabolic function. So we're looking at, from a type 2 diabetes standpoint, what foods literally am I consuming, and what's my lifestyle? Am I active? Am I living an active lifestyle? Am I working out? High intensity interval training, or am I doing some sort of pump or lifting, 3 to 4 times a week? Or am I just sitting at a desk and eating carbohydrate dense foods and highly processed things? Now, if that's your diet if you're eating processed foods, carbohydrates, and you're like, well, I love the Italian meal and I love the Italian food and that's just who I am. I love carbs. Well, that's setting a perfect stage, setting the perfect scenario for you to be diabetic. And so you should, if this is the case, if man, I love carbs, I love candy, I love sugar, I love sodas, that's your diet. That describes your diet, or in part or in whole, if that describes your diet. You should get your hemoglobin A1C, your glucose, fasting insulin, a home IR score. Those are things that you would really want to get to see how your body metabolically is doing. Because you're very well, by that diet alone, setting the stage for type 2 diabetes, which is based on your lifestyle. It's not an inherited, per se, disease that comes to you. It's literally something that you create with your choices every day.
If you're type 2 diabetic, you're wearing a glucose monitor, you're really good at work, you put a lot of work in, and you just don't care about your health as much, those people are out there. They're grinding. Okay, I've got this diagnosis. I went to my Western medical doctor. Maybe I'm medicating it somehow. Like, is there a wake-up call? Like, why should they care about this? Is there something that you think could get through to them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The wake-up call, I think, is neuroinflammation, Alzheimer's, the potential of developing dementia, but also just the mitochondrial dysfunction. At some point, your cells are going to be resistant to insulin. Even if you start taking insulin, you're going to be resistant to insulin because they've been so irritated by the amount of sugar that's in your body. The body is protecting itself. It protects itself so it doesn't take all of the insulin in all the time. You only have a certain number of insulin receptors on the cell. And so we need sugar in our body. It's not to say we are eliminating sugar, but we need quality sugar and we need the right amount of it. And if we get all those parameters just right, the body will function very well. You'll be able to think, you'll have an appropriate weight, you won't be gaining weight, and you'll have good digestion. And so things will work so much better. Diabetics often end up very, very concerned for their kidney health because it leads to kidney dysfunction. Diabetes, overutilization of sugar in the diet, also leads to cardiovascular disease, we have oftentimes these patients who develop sores, non-healing wounds and sores on their legs, on their feet. And so diabetics often, we have them often go in and get checked and evaluated to make sure that they're not developing these things. But frequently it happens. And the reason it happens is because the vasculature is so poor in the extremities. So you have a lot of inflammation. Inflammation is in your blood because the sugars are so high. Okay? And so a lot of that comes from your diet. So even if you're medicating it, you're doing metformin, you're doing insulin, or you're doing something to try to counteract that, there's still a significant amount of inflammation that you need to address. And the only way to really, truly address it, is with lifestyle, meaning exercise, and diet.
So if someone comes into your office and they're concerned, did we even talk about type 1? Or did we go to 3 and to 2?
Yeah, 3, 2.
Okay.
1.
It seems like 2 is like the big one, though.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying any of them are.
Well, it's common, and it's definitely
common. It's the one you hear about.
Yeah, and it's definitely one that people can reverse. It's in your control. I think it's the one we should spend the most time on because it's like, this is in your control. This is literally something you created, okay? And if you created it, you can uncreate it. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard, but you can do it, and you're capable of it because you are strong and because the body is capable. The body can do so many things. It's very capable, and it is a self-healing mechanism. All you have to do is give it the proper nutrients, and it will heal.
Well, that got me fired up. So as it relates to type 2 diabetes, is the simple cure cinnamon?
Cinnamon is a great one. So I do like cinnamon a lot. So cinnamon
What did you just say?
That was cinnamon.
Oh, in Chinese medicine?
In Mandarin, yes.
Oh, in Mandarin,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who speaks Mandarin is going to be like, he didn't pronounce it right. But anyway,
you
that's
practice
cinnamon.
Chinese medicine here as well at
Yes.
Community Health and Wellness in
Yes.
Heber City, Utah. And if folks are like, I know enough from this guy that I want to trust him with my health. First of all, how can they reach out to you? You do virtual consults. You could be in Heber City, Utah. You could be somewhere else.
Yeah. So you can reach out to us via our phone. You can text us, which is probably the easiest way to get a hold of us, is 435-657-3696. Or you can reach out to us through our website at chwheber.com.
Okay, let's talk about cinnamon. I just wanted to do that brief little commercial break.
Cinnamon has been shown to decrease insulin resistance. So it's been shown to be super helpful with blood sugar, right? And so a lot of people are like, okay, great, I'm going to go out and get cinnamon. I'll have cinnamon crunch toast, and I'll put a lot of sugar in with my cinnamon. It's like, well, no, that's not exactly what we're looking for. Cinnamon is a very warming substance, so you do need to be very careful, because if you're already in the stage of inflammation, where there's a metabolically dysfunctional concern that is heat generated, cinnamon is actually going to potentially light that up as well. So it'll just increase the heat signature. So there are things that you can combine with cinnamon. There are certain minerals that go really well with cinnamon that will help counteract some of the heat and requires the body to throw some of that heat or decrease it. But cinnamon itself is a very good thing that you can throw in, on fruit. If you're going to consume fruit, like for breakfast, or berries, which is a really great way to consume fruit or berries in the morning for breakfast, add a little cinnamon and it will help with your blood sugar.
But shouldn't you avoid eating just berries as a snack? Shouldn't you eat protein before that or something to manage the glucose spike?
The ideal is always to have protein first, then veggies, and then carbs. So yeah, even if you're doing it with berries, but let's compare good, better, best.
Some people are just going to do what they're going to do, and you're just like, if you're going to eat this anyway.
Yes, I would way rather have you, if you're looking for like a quick snack, because people are saying, hey, I just don't have time. Sit there and make a sausage and avocado and, put things, which would be great. That would be a really great breakfast. But if you don't have the time for that and you're just grabbing something, we'll grab something that is a whole food, that is a food product in itself, that has fiber, that has sugar, that has the glucose in it, but also has the minerals and the nutrients, the vitamins that are going to be so nutritional for your cells and deliver, yes, the sugar that your brain needs and that your cells need, but also the minerals and the nutrients that are going to help to counteract any of that spike. So it's highly unlikely that you'll have a significant amount of spike with fruit, whole food, as you do with, say, a candy bar.
Someone comes in your office, they either had diabetes or they're just concerned about their health. They finally get around to do the blood labs. You sit down with them, you're looking at it, analyzing it. Okay, you have diabetes. Now what do you do? How do we treat this? How do I get better?
Yeah, so it really is based on unique physiology, but there are some pretty standard core things that we can look at doing. Now, first of all, it's the diet. We want to increase the protein and the fats in your diet. I want to teach your body to begin to utilize fat for its energy source and not carb as much. Most people who are diabetic, I would say almost all of them, are used to using carbohydrates, sugars, processed foods as their energy source. Sometimes even sugars with caffeine, right? They'll use that too. But we want to transition your body and teach your body that there's way more sustainable energy source, and it's called fat. So fat will give you 9 kilocal per gram, so 9 little packets of energy, okay? But carbohydrate and sugar will give you 3. So 3 times the amount of energy you can get from the same amount equivalent of eating fat versus sugar, okay? So if you can teach your body to learn to utilize fat as its energy source, as opposed to sugar, breads, carbs, pastas, candies, cookies, cakes, right? Then you're going to be way better off, and you're going to have way fewer cravings, and you'll have way fewer dips and spikes in insulin.
How do you teach your body to use fats instead of carbs for energy?
Yeah, so the way to do it is to use it.
Okay.
You have to eat it, right? You have to consume it. Sometimes people haven't eaten, or they don't like fat, or it's just not really a big part of their diet. And so we have to slowly implement it, and we have to utilize some enzymes to help their body initially begin to break it down. And then the bile from the gallbladder and the liver take over. So there's a process to doing that for sure. But you do have to begin the process of switching your diet to actually consuming it. So you're saying to your body, hey, this is what we're actually eating now. This is what we're consuming now. This is what we're going to be giving to you regularly. So I want you to check in and see what you can do with these foods. And the reality is everyone's body, even if you've had your gallbladder removed, there are strategies that we can implement even then so that you can increase the amount of fats and proteins and veggies in your meals.
Because there's never a one-size-fits-all for health, but I'm always trying to push for that with you just so we can communicate something that folks at home can use. So these are basic principles that anyone can start to incorporate if they want to improve their health.
Absolutely. And another thing is we're looking at the health of the gut and the GI. We're looking at the biotic balance, right? And we want to promote as beneficial bacteria balance as possible within the gut. And if we can do that, then we're going to have proper neurotransmitter production. We're going to have proper vitamin, like vitamin K2. Like a lot of people right now are, don't take vitamin D3 unless you have K2, and vitamin D3, a fat-soluble vitamin. But vitamin K2 is actually produced by bacteria in the gut. So the only reason you would need to take vitamin K2 with vitamin D is if you have an imbalance of bacteria in the gut. So generally, you should be able to get your vitamin D from the sun. Okay? So if we're not getting it from the sun, then you probably need to consume more fat. And if you consume more fat from, say, liver, cod liver oil specifically, then you should be able to extract the vitamin D from there and make vitamin D in your hormone in your liver. And if you're not able to do it then you still need a supplement. And so then at that point you say, okay, now we're going to take this little pill that is vitamin D. And if we are still not able to get that up, your vitamin D level, then we need to be saying, okay, this is gut related. This is GI related. Okay. So vitamin D can actually be, the level of vitamin D can be an indicator for maybe why your insulin and your blood sugar maybe isn't working out as well. So if you have vitamin D dysfunction or you have gut irregularity, then that's setting the stage also for blood sugar to not be ideal.
There's so much more to talk about, I'm sure. Are we still on type 2?
Yep. Now we're ready to move to type 1.
Okay, let's move to type 1.
Okay, so type 1 oftentimes in the past has been referred to as a genetic predisposition. So people have a genetic predisposition for having a deficient beta cell production of insulin, which essentially happens within the pancreas. Pancreas produces insulin, sends it out so that we can push sugar into the cells. Well, if you're not able to do that as a baby or even as an infant or as a toddler at some point, then your cells are not going to get sugar, and so they can't function properly. So if you're not getting insulin sufficiently, you might want to look at that. And another reason or another causative factor, not just genetic, and I think this one is actually a more common and more likely factor, is a autoimmune source. So if you have autoimmune diabetes or type 1 autoimmune, what that means essentially is that your body, your immune system sent out immunological or immunoglobulins to essentially gobble up and initiate inflammation and to break down cells of a pathogen, which would be a virus or bacteria or something like that. But as it was sent out, it came across the pancreas, and for whatever reason, and we don't know exactly why, but it decided that the pancreas, and maybe that there was a bacteria or virus in and around the pancreas, it started breaking it down, and so it started also tagging some of the cells of the pancreas as being pathogenic. So if you have inflammation, just like you have inflammation in your knee or in your elbow, you have inflammation, the knee doesn't work as well. It's like, oh, I can't move it. It's stiff. It's tight. It's really swollen. It hurts. It aches. Same thing happens to our organs. If we have inflammation in and around our organ, it's not going to work as well. It won't produce what it needs to produce. It can't function the way it needs to function, just like your knee swollen up. And so if my pancreas has an infection in it or an autoimmune condition where the immune system has tagged it as being pathogenic, it's going to elicit that inflammation, cause the swelling, and decrease the amount of insulin that's able to be secreted by it, and therefore we end up with an inadequate amount of sugar going into the cell. And then we have the dysfunction of diabetes type 1.
Can diabetes type 1 be reversed?
Yes, it can be. It takes a lot of work and time and commitment. It's I would say it's way more rare for it to be reversed than type 2 and type 3.
If you have type 2, you very well could get type 3?
Yes.
Which is Alzheimer's dementia.
Yeah, it's neural inflammation. Yep, which is Alzheimer's dementia.
Can we end on a hopeful note? I mean,
yeah, the hopeful note is that 98% of people, or 98%, 98 around there million Americans that have diabetes, 98 million Americans have type 2. It's a lifestyle. So exercise and eat right. Take a few steps a day. Change one thing a day. Let's say that. Change one food that you're going to consume a day, or choose to eliminate one food that you know is not working for you. A highly processed carb, a candy, cookie, cake, donut. Take those things out of your diet. Begin one at a time. You don't have to do it immediately, right? So do it one at a time, and little steps do have big consequences. Okay? If you're trying to get to the top of the mountain, you don't do it in 2 big steps, right? You don't do it in 1 big step. You literally hike there, step by step by step by step, and eventually you're at the top of the mountain. Each of those steps is like you taking a food and pulling it away, or implementing a new food, increasing the amount of fat in your diet, increasing protein, finding quality sources.
What if you don't change your diet, but you start lifting heavy things like weight training?
Well, it's going to help, but it's only going to get you halfway up the mountain.
So what's more important, lifting heavy things? Because I know, isn't there a role of muscles and glucose and all that
sure.
versus diet? Like, what if you just don't want to? What if your capacity is to change one thing and you're not so
one
good
or
at
the
changing
other?
70,000 things at once? Yeah.
If your passion is to change one or the other, and you're putting me in a really difficult spot, because I think you should change both. But
often doing one will lead to the other, right? Because you start to get a little bit of a snowball.
Yeah, if you change one or the other, I would say you have to look at yourself and say which is easiest in your circumstance to change. Okay, so let's say you have a really busy life, and food and prep and all of that is just it's not something that you feel like you have a lot of control over. But you could wake up 30 minutes earlier and get a workout, or 45 minutes earlier and get a workout, and you feel like, okay, if I just started all of my days with that would be fantastic. On the flip side, if you're like, man, I am pressed to the max, but I do eat, right? But I do eat. Okay, great. Well, you're going to take time to eat. Well, let's see if we can utilize that time, or have some time allocated on the weekend or something like that, where we prep so that those meals when we're consuming are going to be the highest density nutrition possible. So I'm not going to say which one is. My preference would be to your food, to change what you're putting in your mouth every single day. I think it will have a greater impact. I think it will have a greater impact even than exercise. However, it's completely insufficient without exercise, and it only gets you part way up the hill. Okay, you don't get to the top of the mountain unless you do both lifestyle and diet.
There's so much more to talk about, but I like keeping these at under 30 minutes. And I think that if folks have more questions, they can reach out to your office. The description will have all the links to Community Health and Wellness in Heber City, Utah. Dr. Ron Dummar, if you thought there was value in this podcast, you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's free.
Share it with a friend.
Yeah, share it with a friend. Put it on your story. And also, you could leave a 5-star review if you're listening to this podcast.
Please do.
The Be Well Now podcast, 3 years strong.
Namaste.
Here in Heber City, Utah. Be well now. Namaste.